Hi, my name's Gus Granger, and I'm going to show you how I changed the front wheel hub for my 2006 LR3. So as you'll see, this is the first time I've done something like this, but I've done some research online and have some advice from good friends that are experienced with this, and you'll see how this goes for me. So here I'm taking out this 10mm bolt. I really should have used a ratchet. The air gun was overkill. On the back of the caliper are two 21mm bolts. These are 12-point bolts. Don't use a 6-point socket. And on this truck, they were pretty stubborn, so I needed to use a torch and WD-40 to get these two loose. Actually, the one on top came right off. So in another demo, I saw how to do this. We have this hook to hold the caliper out of the way for when you're hammering the hub off later on, so that's good advice. Since we're talking about protecting parts from the hammering, this is the wheel speed sensor, and this is not required to take off, but it's a good idea to protect so you don't have to replace it later on. Here I needed to rewind. I removed this number 50 Torx bolt early on. I should have waited till this step, but I skipped back on the video to actually show that I actually took it off, and that it wasn't missing when I took off the wheel, as the video would seem to indicate. So then I hammer back this crimp to get the nut to come loose. The hardest part of this whole thing was getting these four 15mm bolts off the back of the hub. And it wasn't just because I ran out of daylight, as you'll see, and it's pretty dark here as I'm working on my driveway. They just were not moving, so I was having to put a lot of heat, and I pulled out this rust-breaking WD-40 that I have to work these things out. And it was a combination of loosening, and then they would stop rotating, and then I would tighten them back up and then put more heat, and then loosen them back up again, and then I eventually got it figured out. So the last step of that night was taking off this nut, then went to sleep so I could start in the morning with real light. Then it was hammer time. This video is sped up dramatically, and probably was beating on this thing for, I don't know, a good 5 minutes. And it comes out, and this is a reminder. This is why we took the calipers out of the way, or we took the speed sensor out of the way, for this part of just brutal, just beating on this thing. There's another video out there which shows using an air chisel to kind of get into this gap, but it just wasn't necessary for me. So here it is, the extracted, old, decrepit wheel hub, and my shiny brand new one from the fantastic people at Lucky 8. You can get your own at lucky8llc.com. So this next step, prior to putting the hub and the wheel sensor back on, I wanted to clean off those areas with the wire brush here, and then get about the business of actually putting those parts back on again. So I've seen this done where you put the 4 bolts in first before putting the hub on, and I did it out of order here, and it wasn't a problem for me. So it's just something to keep in mind if you're going to try this yourself, that you may just take each of the 4 15mm bolts and push them through and use that to actually guide, putting the hub back into place. So here we are putting everything back together the way that we took it apart. Here, now that there's better light, you can actually see what the new crimp is like when I'm using a chisel to actually put it back in place. That keeps it just from that nut from rotating while you're driving around it. This is what we were hammering loose earlier with the diamond chisel, but now there's actual light on this, you can see the reverse of what we were changing. Put the rotor back on here, and the oh so important number 50 Torx bolt. Almost done. We get this caliper put back on, and this has the 2 21mm bolts that were such a bear to get off of this in the first place. I mean, it's so satisfying to get them put back on effortlessly. In putting this bracket back on, don't use your impact wrench, just use a ratchet. I applied way too much torque to this and had an undesirable result. So after fixing that mistake, I got to put everything back together again, and it felt pretty good to take on this challenge that was daunting at the beginning, and following good advice, getting good parts, and just being intentional and deliberate and careful and having the right tools, got this thing done. So thanks for watching.